So namaste, welcome to Satsang today. So today, what seems to want to come forth is perhaps an even more direct way to perceive reality and experience of reality, because what most of us live in is some kind of altered state, and reality itself is often thought of as an altered state or something like that, but actually we have it the other way around. Most human beings are so completely experiencing reality through their thoughts, and also completely believing that what they're experiencing is reality, and that is the illusion itself. That's why it's so challenging to come out of illusion, because this idea that what we're experiencing is reality. And it sure seems real when you're going through something in your life, when you're feeling some emotion, when something's happened that you don't want, or even that you do want. It feels extraordinarily real. And this illusion is reinforced over and over again. So things seem to happen to me as a separate being, as a person, as a someone. And that happening, these events, these experiences, seem to reinforce this idea that I am a separate being, alone in the universe, surrounded by all these other beings and things. And perhaps the only way to come out of that permanently is to really perceive what reality actually is directly, and to perceive that over and over again until it begins to override the illusion that we slide back into. Because even if we have the clearest seeing ever of what we actually are, that you're everywhere, that you're infinite, formless, all these forms too, and that ultimately those are one, form and formless, it's not going to help unless that is a stable thing that stays with you as a kind of background knowing as you just watch the events of your life unfold, so that you know you're experiencing this human existence and all that comes with that, the highs and the lows, but that you're not actually just a human being. You are so much more than that. So I thought it might be helpful to take a little look at exactly who you are in terms of what you actually are, rather than what you have thought yourself to be. Because for me, that was a sticking point too. Over and over again, the illusion of who I thought I was. I thought I was on this journey to come out of illusion. I thought I was on a journey where I was gradually transcending the mind and coming away from believing my thoughts. And it became clear over time, with repeated seeing, that that isn't true. It seems to be how it is for all of us in satsang. What's actually true, though, is that you're already free, outside of any kind of being caught or being trapped or suffering. And it's only this idea that we keep going back to, that we're on a journey to somewhere, trying to get to something. And really, we've just substituted worldly goals for spiritual goals here in satsang, but we can still be believing the same thing, that we're heading towards something. Instead of really the pinnacle of our life being having a family, getting a good job and a decent income and all of that, our goal then becomes awakening itself. But is it a goal, or is it seeing? Is it a goal in the future, or seeing that it's already how it is for us, and that begins to gently override, or sometimes quickly, powerfully override, this idea that we want to keep on moving, keep on traveling. So let's look at you directly. And hopefully that will begin to really override this idea that you've got to get somewhere, and replace it with this sense that everything is just okay as it is, and that you're really something so much more immense than this being traveling on a journey. So just, if you want to, just want to invite you to follow along with me, and best that you can. And if you get stuck anywhere, get a little bit lost, it's okay, just refocusing on what I'm saying. And it's not the goal of this investigation for you to come to understand something mentally through the mind. It's not even the goal to have an epiphany or an aha moment or a shift. Those might happen, but I'm really more interested in those who are willing to try to follow along, because that is undoing imagined lifetimes of karmic patterns, and most of all this pattern of believing ourselves to be moving through time and space. And in fact, time and space are moving through us, you, the one infinite being. So if you feel confused at any point, that's normal, and it's perhaps even a good sign that your mind doesn't get it. So you aren't going to waste time trying to assimilate this in the mind and then realize that doesn't help you anyway, doesn't bring lasting peace, at least. So right now, as you're sitting, wherever you're sitting, just looking at you and who you really are, what you can already perceive. I'm not going to do any special tricks for this. We're just going to point out the obvious, that we, as human beings, we're strange creatures, aren't we? What is obvious, we overlook and undervalue. What seems far away and mystical, we revere and worship in a way. So we're going to look at the obvious right now. So through your senses right now, your eyes can see this image, or whatever you're looking at, whatever device you're joining this on, watching this, whether you're watching this live or years down the line, whatever your eyes are seeing now, you can perceive the form that's on the screen. There's other forms around. There's forms in the room that you're sitting in, wherever that is that your body is. There's your own body form. There's whatever you're sitting on. There's everything else in the room. You can quite easily perceive forms. You can hear forms. Right now, there's a clock ticking. There's rain falling off the window ledge outside for me. I can hear these words. These are forms too. Whatever forms, sounds are going on around you. You can smell, you can touch, you can taste, you can feel the contact that your body makes with whatever you're sitting or lying on, or whatever, wherever you are. You can feel the contact that your clothes are making on your skin. Even the subtle feeling of touch of the air on your face, on your hands, you can feel that. And that's going on all the time, sense perception, in the waking state at least. And we tend to just kind of overlook that as, we tend to only really value it perhaps when we might lose one of those senses. So right now, effortlessly, you can perceive forms. Wherever your body went in the world, you'd be seeing a variety of different forms, different shapes, but it's pretty constant perceiving those through the senses. And also right now, equally obvious as that and continuous, is your ability to perceive the formless. So right now, in between all of these forms, by contrast, there is something formless, something without substance, without shape, without texture, without color, outside of the senses, imperceptible to the senses, but nonetheless here. And easily demonstrated through contrast. So with the contrast of this form, I can see that in between my hands, there is something that is formless. It's invisible, it has no taste, has no color. The It's all around my body. It's all around the room. We call it perhaps just empty space. We might overlook that. In fact, all of our reality at all times is made up of forms and this formless, whatever it is. So right now, without doing anything else, you can perceive form and formless. You didn't have to do any meditation for that. It's just a simple observation of what is perhaps overlooked and undervalued. At all times in our experience, where our body is walking around in this formlessness, constantly, can't get away from it. There's the very space in which your body's sitting, in which the room that you're sitting in is present, the house, the building, whatever you're experiencing this satsang from. So always you are perceiving in two modes, continuously, effortlessly. You can perceive the formless. It's just right here. I can't see it with my eyes, but I know there's something that I can't see here, with my eyes at least. There's something that makes no sound that my ears can hear, and yet is nonetheless present. And as we switch to perceiving that, the empty space in the room, around the objects, you might begin to notice a change in your body. So effortlessly, you can begin to perceive formless or form. Normally, as human beings, we're so transfixed by the forms that we completely overlook formless that's here at all times, that can never be gotten away from, and yet completely overlooked, undervalued, because it just seems to be a necessary space in which I put stuff, my body, and all of this, and all the things in my home itself. Just this space is necessary to have the stuff in it. What if we flipped that on its head? Because awakening, in my own experience, was about coming to value that which I overlooked more than that which I paid most attention to. All of my attention went to that which I could see, feel, hear, touch, taste, and perhaps more importantly, what I thought, the subtle objects, the subtle forms in my mind. Mind is a subtle form. It comes and goes. It's gone in deep sleep. It's gone without a body. It reappears in the waking state. For most of us, it's pretty constant throughout the day. More attention went to those thought forms than anything else at all. Perhaps 95% of my attention throughout my whole waking state was on thoughts. And that's pretty usual for a human being, isn't it? Every now and again, we're mind stunned into silence by some horrible thing we don't want to go through, or some beautiful thing, a great work of art, some music that moves us to tears, a newborn baby, a beautiful sunset, petting your cat or your dog, whatever that is that moves the mind to just stop, because it has no way to interpret just for a moment what is going on. So most of us spend all of our time perceiving forms. So maybe awakening is just about turning that around, a 180 on that. What if you began to value that which seems to have no value at all? What if we get really honest and admit that we don't really know what that is, that we might have just somehow within our being labeled it as irrelevant, necessary, but dull, boring, irrelevant? And is that really so? Because when all of these forms have gone, this body, these thoughts, all of this stuff in this room itself, the planet that it's all sitting on, when all of that is gone, as it will be one day, the only thing that remains is this nothingness, this formlessness, space, being. Doesn't it make sense then that if we're not living in peace, love, and joy, that perhaps we haven't really given enough attention to that which is permanent, here, stable, effortless already? Perhaps we haven't really understood fully that how amazing we are, that we're not just able to perceive forms, that we're constantly in both modes of perception, form and formlessness. Have you noticed what it means that you can perceive both of those even now? And can you notice the tendency here in Satsang? We might go, well, this is the most important thing, the most important, this formlessness. I really, really want to know it. And there might be this burning desire for awakening. And then 10 minutes after Satsang, or 10 minutes after you finish meditation, there is this obsession resuming with thoughts again, with the forms and the moving and the changing. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just noticing that that allegiance has gone back to the forms. There's nothing wrong with forms. But trying to depend upon the changing and the moving, the impermanent, to give us stable, effortless joy, peace, isn't really going to work. And something even more amazing, you're capable of something even more amazing than that, of focusing on what is stable. If you do that for even a short amount of time, spend more of your waking state aware of that which has no color, shape, or taste, and yet has never left, is always everywhere, is not changing, is not going to end, then you're going to realize some very amazing things. They're just going to pop into your head spontaneously at some point, without struggle, without striving. The first of those things you're going to realize is that what you are is this formlessness, that this form you're experiencing, this body, these thoughts, these emotions, these experiences are all temporary, can be enjoyed, valued, used. They can help you contrast against your real nature. By having a form, you can contrast against the formless. Notice the formless. And at some point, it's going to become really obvious. Just because you're interested in the formlessness, you want to spend more of your waking state perceiving that. It doesn't mean you have to walk around everywhere with your eyes closed. As I'm looking at this laptop now, I can notice the formlessness around it, enveloping it completely. As I'm walking down the stairs, I can notice the still space which the body's moving that isn't moving. Your whole life could become a meditation, in fact. So you're going to come to realize, you'll just come to know, like any insight or aha moment, it will just suddenly be obvious when it wasn't before, that this is your essential nature. This is you. It's not empty space at all. It's pure sentience, brilliance. It's indestructible, the source of everything that comes into manifestation. Timeless, changeless, pure, unblemished, beyond all categories and opposites, subject to no harm ever, impossible to destroy, never started, can never stop, not even dependent upon any phenomena to perceive it, not even needing to be perceived. That's going to be the first thing that becomes clear as you just put more time and attention on the formlessness. We could also call that meditation. Formlessness, whether we call it empty space, being, consciousness, awareness, silence, stillness, presence, noumenon, self, capital S, emptiness, nothingness. It has 100,000 names. And yet none of them really describe it. It's a mystery. You're a mystery to me still. So that's going to become clear. There'll be some insight that will just happen to you. Why? Because when you're interested in this, whatever this is, you're really falling in love with yourself. Even if you don't realize this is you at first. What you're really saying in essence with your whole being is, I want to know me. I want to know me. I want to realize what I really am. So that will just happen. And no amount of striving to realize that with your attention 95% of the time on form, thoughts usually, can make that happen. And we've all tried, haven't we? For a very long time, usually. Even if you're new to Satsang in this lifetime, you've probably been there before. You could spend 16 hours a day trying to figure out what you are every day, trying to have some epiphany. When all of your attention is pretty much focused on form to do that, it's not going to work. You could spend 20 minutes a day focusing on formlessness, but consistently. Some power is going to build up in the body. And at some point, this realization will happen. And it's not about time, is it? It's not about something. It's not about if I spend 10 hours focusing on formlessness rather than 10 minutes, I'm going to get this realization 10 times faster, because timelessness isn't affected by time. The formlessness isn't affected by time. It's really the realization depends on how much you value and love this, whatever this is. How to come to value it, to love it, is to really, if this is the source of everything, this thing that we just take for granted, everywhere our body goes, we take for granted that the space is there for us to move around in our body. Could any of this actually be here without it? So humility finally got me to admit I don't know anything about this. I know a lot about the world of forms. I know a lot about my mind. And can I actually admit for a moment that I don't know anything about the space, as I used to call it, that just fills, it's just empty space that's necessary between the forms. And I really got this. I began to really worship and revere this formlessness. Began to try to fall in love with it, to understand it, to want to see it, to want to see every facet it could show me, even though it seemed like when I started this that it didn't have any facets. It just, this was all it is, that I'd seen it all. So the devotion, the intensity, the desire to understand, to know, understand in the heart, and to know is really to be it. They become one and the same. The realization happens. This is me. I am that, this, whatever this is. And then the second thing that's going to become clear if you carry on, which brings lasting, final, stable, permanent awakening that you cannot go back from and would not want to, is that all of these forms and this formlessness are the same thing, showing up two different ways. You can show up as form or formlessness. Form is perceptible to the senses or the mind. Formlessness is not, but it doesn't mean they're different. And if we want to prove that right now, we can. So there seems to be, if you look at any object in the room, there seems to be the object and then the space around the object. Space around my hand, space between my hand and my head. And it seems that that space stops where my hand starts. If you spend even 2 days questioning that, just 2 days, something profound is going to happen. Does the space really stop? Does the formlessness really stop where the form starts? And if not, are they really two? Just like water can show up as water vapor, invisible in the sky, and then appear as a visible cloud. Water vapor in this room that we're breathing right now, or wherever you are, or if you cool it down enough, it becomes solid ice, or even liquid water you can drink. It's useful. Could you be like that? Could you be showing up as this empty space of being, and then sometimes showing up as form, but not a whole universe of forms, actually just one substance that can show up 2 ways. It can show up as a substance or a substance less. That is what you are. You can perceive this right now effortlessly. The Buddha nature, your true form, is that you can show up both ways and have been doing for all eternity. If all of these forms disappeared, everything, you'd still be here in your formless aspect. All these forms are beautiful. You can begin to recognize they are expressions of you too. No amount of striving to understand that as a seeker, as a someone, will make it clear. Even if you spend 20 hours a day trying to figure that out, it's not going to work. If you just fall in love with their essential nature, the first way that you show up, which is formlessness, all of that becomes clear. These lower thought forms, I'm doing, I'm thinking, I am suffering, I'm on a journey, all of these thoughts that cloud and fill the mind with doubts, fears, all of that will begin to disappear. And the thoughts that come into the mind will be about your essential nature. What's it like to be formless? And then the realization will pop in there at some point that they're not really two. That something that is formless cannot stop just because it encounters a form. What if those words become synonyms in your mind? How would that change your mind if you realize that all of your thoughts are empty of substance? They are substance-less, appearing as form. Would they still have the same pulling power, the same magnetic attraction? Would you still be able to believe them? Would you still be upset by any form at all if you came to know what it really is? That it's you in disguise, that it's Shiva in a costume, that it's Krishna playing with these divine forms. So all of this, everything that we're striving for, will be given effortlessly when we fall in love with what's already here, but overlooked constantly. So just one thing for me made all of the difference. This decision, this fire, this passion that just kept growing. I had to feed that fire. I had to, every time I suffered from some idea about something, I used it to feed this fire of passion. Like, am I going to use this to build a greater fire of devotion that's still raging? It's an inferno now, actually. And it will burn everything that you can suffer from, all of your thoughts. I'm going to use this suffering that I'm feeling right now to be even more determined that I'm going to transcend this all. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I just know that I will. By falling in love with this mystery, giving more attention to, more of my thought process to. Noticing my habit to go back to thinking about forms and people that I think are there, that I think are outside of me. This whole phenomenal universe is you in disguise. The subtle forms, thoughts, emotions, experiences, the tangible gross forms like human bodies, buildings, planets, universe itself. This very ordinary thing that we do as human beings, perceiving form and formlessness. Have you ever really stopped and just taken in how amazing that is, that you can do that? That you're not limited to forms, you can perceive both. And then as you do that, this word both begins to melt away. This sense of duality still dances, still plays. There's a sense that I'm sitting here talking to you and your body is somewhere else. It's a sense. It's not real. It's been seen through. I don't suffer from it then. So all these words I've just said, you can completely forget if you just take away one thing. Just one thing. That you're overlooking something that is magnificent. Also known as you. That you're valuing something that's going to disappear. And totally, generally ignoring that which is sublimely perfect. It is reliable, it's dependable, it's everywhere, it is you. Next time you look at empty space, even as you look now at the empty space in the room that you're sitting in, can you be humble enough to admit it might just be the most magnificent thing that you've never really fully explored what it could be, what it is, that maybe we've always labeled it as just boring, dull, necessary. I invite you to kind of fall in love with whatever this is. I still don't know what it is. I'm utterly, utterly in love with it, with you. You can call it you can call it me, you can call it empty space, we can call it 1,000 names. But the names are just really subtle thought forms floating around in it, in the nameless. So I urge you to find your passion for this. Each time you suffer and believe a thought and come back out of it again, can you use that? Can you be a little more determined? I'm determined to be free of all thoughts at some point, even the thought that form and formless are two, that they're different things. You don't have to figure out how to realize that. You just need to fall in love more with reality. One is a long, endless struggle that never gets you there. You could think 100 million billion thoughts about formlessness and still not know it. Still not be it consciously. You are it, but be it consciously. You could fall in love with something that you don't understand and have the most beautiful existence that never ends, that just gets better. I hope I've inspired you to kind of take a fresh look at what most human beings ignore, even on the pathway, even in non-duality. Our mind was likely to say, I know what silence is, I know it. I heard it in meditation today, I know it. I'm hearing it right now. I know it. I know what awareness is. I know there's awareness present. I know what consciousness is. I know what formlessness is. Notice our mind's tendency to want to label and box something, stamp it with understood, and then move it to the side. And move on to the next exciting thing. This isn't a thing. It shows up as things, but it's not limited to things. Could it be as simple as that? Consistently bringing attention to that which you cannot understand, but you can become. Noticing the tendency to allow attention to wander back to forms more than formless. You don't even have to, if you take your whole waking state, you don't have to get 95% of attention on formlessness because it's so powerful. If you manage just 5%, 10%, if you use your everyday experience, while you're talking to someone in a conversation, can you hear the silence those words are coming back and forth in? While you're moving, walking along, can you notice the stillness that isn't moving? Your body's moving inside. Can you notice the consciousness in contrast to what you're conscious of? This emotion, this thought. Do you notice that you're aware right now by noticing what you're aware of? And there's 1,000 moments like this each day that tip that balance. And then a habit forms to pay more attention to this. Habit becomes effortless, spontaneous, and automatic. Very shortly after that, freedom makes itself known. Just walks in the front door and sits down and says, this is what you are. And by the way, this is what everything is. Sometimes I feel like I want to go on for like 3 hours and just keep telling you must focus on this. But I'll stop there. So I'm going to invite questions. If anybody has a question, I'm going to read 2 questions that have been sent in. We'll see how many questions we can get through. I'll read these 2 first and I'll come to you, Angie. This one says, Dear Helen, you often say that we think there is something wrong with me. I am ashamed, I feel guilty, I don't deserve, I'm afraid, unsafe, and so on. That is not at all what I think or feel about myself, and I don't want to change. There is nothing right or wrong. It is what society taught me to think, and I don't believe the society if it doesn't apply to me. But what I still don't understand is that I am not a separate being. Separate from what or from whom? You say that when you look, you don't find someone. Or ask, can I find that person? When I look, I find me, the person. Forget mind, emotions. I know I am more than that, but not separated. I don't understand. Could you please explain what we are not separate from? Why do you say you don't find someone? How can I feel that? Thank you. So you're very lucky then if you don't feel unworthy or fear or anything like that. So when you say you look and you find a person, you said, when I look, I find me, the person. What is it that you're calling a person? Is it your body? What is it that's someone? What constitutes a person, a someone? And how do we go about proving or disproving that? If what you are is eternal, then can we count anything that is temporary, coming and going as yourself? When you look, you find me, a person. Forget mind, forget emotions. Well, forget the body too, because that's going to go. You say my body, you say my mind, my emotions. When I looked at this myself, I found that there was this sense of someone here, a sense of a person that I was so utterly convinced was here. And when I looked at it, something one day was different. Something just decided inside. I wanted to just actually find out where and what this person was, this separate being that was having this epic struggle, this amazing, fantastic, horrible journey towards awakening out of suffering. And when I actually looked at this person that I was so sure was here, I'd referenced this person that I was Every single time I thought about anything, there was this idea of me and other, this other being. So if you think about, you're asking separate from what? If you think about your brother, your sister, your wife, your husband, your children, your boss, think about me. There's a sense that I'm different to, separate from. Those people are different to you, separate from you, isn't it? That they're other than you. But that can only be true if you are this person. And I'd really urge you to be determined to go beyond the sense that the person is here, that you're a separate someone, separate to all these other forms, that this laptop is not me, that this scarf is not me, that this body is not me, that this clothes I'm wearing are not me, that the chair I'm sitting on is not me. It's mine, but it's not me. It indicates some separation there, right? So be determined to find this person, actually, really determined, as if your life depended on it, because it does, actually. And see what happens. When I was really determined, I realized that what I was calling a person was really a bunch of thoughts, emotions, sense perceptions, desires, memories, projections into the future, all of that. A sense of being someone is not actually a someone. And if I feel differently about anyone else or anything else than I do about me, there's a sense of separation as being separate to that person. So have a go with that and see where that takes you. And you can always write back in. Don't assume a person is there, because if the person is made of thoughts and emotions and sense perceptions, those are always changing. That would mean that the person is always changing. It's also, by the way, completely absent in deep sleep. That person that you're sure is there is absent in deep sleep at nighttime, absent completely in deep meditation, absent when the body's gone completely. In fact, it's absent every time you're not thinking about it. Totally gone. So worth more investigation if that really is what a person is. So I'll read this next one. Hi Helen, Happy New Year. Thank you. To you too. I feel like my final surrender is coming close. I don't know when, but sometimes I feel a bright light of hope nearing me, if that makes sense. But at the same time, there's a lot of pain inside me, which is showing up mostly as emotional pain. Most of the time, I can see it for what it is and not get lost with the story or drama associated with it. However, there are those days when I simply cannot stay as the awareness for more than a few minutes, and the mind creates a lot of suffering. There are many repeated thought patterns showing up, and all seems to be very sticky and unresolvable. This thought of worry keeps coming up a lot these days. Life is tough to manage. It will crumble down if I surrender to it. How can I survive life fully by letting go? Okay. I know there are just the feelings of fear from the ego within me, but I'm unable to transcend these worry feelings. Another such sticky pattern is a feeling of unworthiness. I had let go of emotional patterns in the past, but these seem to be the deepest and are stuck in me for a long, long time. These feelings contract me so much that I feel utterly depressed and lonely. Is there really any hope for me to fully, completely transcend these mental conditionings, Helen, or is my hope just a fantasy of the mind? When will the pain end? I want to be free from the mind's suffering once and for all. Do you have any suggestions for me? Thanks, and lots of love to you. So there is absolutely an end to suffering. Or perhaps clearer said, there's a point where we realize we have never suffered, even though that seems utterly what's happening at the moment. So you said, I can't remain as the awareness for very long before mind cuts in. There's days when I can't do it at all. There's probably also days every now and again that you can do it a lot. But if that is changing, it cannot be the permanent, effortless thing, can it, that you are? What does it mean to remain as awareness to you? Does it mean to keep attention on awareness? Can you do that all the time? Can anyone do that all the time? Not really. Or is it to notice that awareness is always present? That doesn't mean you spend your whole waking state trying to stay in contact with that. It means whenever you can, you access that. Is awareness here? Yep. Did it just arrive when I looked for it? Is it going to go when my mind starts talking again and attention goes to mind or some emotion? Is that gone then, awareness? Has it disappeared when I'm not looking? Does it reappear when I look? Is awareness ever present or absent? Well, even when thoughts are there, even when this thought is contracted feeling, that I can't focus on awareness, I can't even remember awareness, there is awareness of that thought. You know that feeling, that thought is there. There's something that knows. Consciousness, awareness, sentience, pure being is still there, but the focus has gone back to phenomena. So just that recognition that the awareness is always present. Even in deep sleep, it's present. It knows in deep sleep, there is no time now. There is no change. There's no duality. There's no becoming. There's no transcending. And bringing attention back to that as often as you can. When you can't, it's okay. When you can, recognizing it's been here continuously unbroken, looking at thoughts, and then it turns to look at itself, and then it looks out at thoughts, and then it turns to look at itself, and then it looks out at thoughts. But it remains constant all times. And if I were you, I would put a little less value on hope, on this final surrender of this time that you're suffering, or this feeling that the time of your suffering is coming to an end. I put more value on seeing, perhaps I haven't been ever suffering. Because the closer you get to this hope, the more it's like a carrot that you can never fully reach, is dangled in front of you. And as you get close to it, it moves further away constantly. You can only come to see that awareness is always here at all times. And then from that, the realization is very close that you are that awareness. That's the only constant thing there is. When this feeling of hope comes and this excited feeling, I would just, not so excited by that actually. Maybe that's the cycle that keeps me suffering. And when this despair comes, I'm not getting anywhere, that I can't do it, I would, a little dispassion for that too. And maybe all of that is the circus that goes around and around. I'm getting closer. No, I'm not. I'm almost there. I'll never get there. It's the thought loop, isn't it, that goes around and around. Meanwhile, the awareness watches all of it. So there is an end to suffering, just not quite the way you're trying to pursue it here. Seeing that you're already outside of whatever's going on in the mind, you're watching it all, you know it's all, and you're not involved in any of it. Okay, hope that helps. We'll go to Angie. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, Helen. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I loved what you've just said, the talk. My heart was just singing.
Wonderful.
I have a question, but before that, I just want to share that there is a revelation here of this sweet emptiness and a longing to keep returning there. It's like meeting my most beloved. It's like wanting to be alone with my most beloved, and that is here, me, right now. And I just want to say that I've listened to so many satsangs, and when people sort of pop up and talk about the love and the bliss, I always got quite triggered by that and thought, well, it's all right for them. They don't have my problems. I just want to share that the human appearance of Angie has been one of really quite significant suffering throughout the life, and also trauma and long-term illness and so on. And it makes not a jot of difference. It's not in the way. It's not an obstacle. It doesn't have to be resolved or fixed. And having said that, there are still triggers definitely strong enough to pull attention back into the hypnosis of that whole appearance and despair and all that. So I just wanted to say that if anyone's thinking, well, it's all right for her. My question is, with dipping into and as emptiness, where there is clearly no individual there or mind, is it important or is it helpful in any way that when mind is functioning again, that there are affirmations of that emptiness? Or is that another trick of the ego, sort of jumping onto an I'm enlightened thing, which, you know,
We've all done that. We've all been there, done that.
Yeah. Does it need affirming as a little belief there, or should that be left alone completely? In other words, if the mind is still getting involved in seeking, or I can't do this or whatever, should that be replaced with little daydreams about this sweet emptiness that is my inner beloved? I don't know whether I've made that clear. I wonder if you could address that, please.
Yeah, it's not so much about what's going on in the mind, it's about why it's happening. For me, as I began to fall in love with that emptiness, as you've called it, sweet emptiness, which is a beautiful way to describe you. I found that the content of the mind started to change by itself. There were more of these little daydreams, more mind by itself wanted to pay more attention to this, to think about this too. It wanted to think about the forms much less. No sudden thing where it's like, okay, form is boring, let's think about formlessness. It was very gradual, so subtle. But I would notice my mind thinking about it, trying to understand it, trying to come from this angle, that angle. And at first I fought that, like it should just go quiet. But I realized that was my mind's way of loving the formlessness too. It was starting to understand that it can never understand, but to enjoy the thinking about it as a way to kind of fall in love with it too. So mind, there's nothing wrong with thinking, especially thinking that's about the beloved, you know, the infinite being. And there's nothing sweeter than that in the mind. And naturally from there, you kind of fall back into the silent bliss of your real nature anyway. And then you fall out of there after a while, and thoughts are more and more about that. And then you kind of fall back into there and you get into this upward cycle. So the mind's going to be thinking, it might as well be thinking about something that actually brings us joy and pleasure and all of that. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with that thinking. It's why are you thinking about that? If you're thinking about the beloved and wanting to dissolve in that or recognize that you are that, then that's about as intelligent as mind can be, isn't it? That's about as pure and as beautiful and as focused as it can be. And you can be thinking about the great self, the beloved, and feeling that you're really so far away from it, you'll never get there. Or you can be thinking about it and, wow, won't it be nice when It's totally obvious, clear, no matter what's going on in the body and mind, like you said. You know, it's going to be very clear that that's what I really am. So it's not so much what's going on in the mind, it's why that thought process is occurring. Is it driven by something that's trying to get somewhere? Or is it more just of a, wow, I'm never really gonna fully get this. Like, and that's actually not terrifying. That's actually quite beautiful. That's actually quite freeing. Can I think about it one more time from a different angle? Every time I think about what I really am, it's gonna make me feel a little closer to it or something like that. And if you look at what's happening in your mind, you probably find as you're falling in love with yourself more, it's more the mind's way of worshipping, of revering it. It's not trying to get to it so much. It's just what the mind is currently interested in. So it thinks about it a lot.
That's beautiful. It's almost like singing the praises of rather than...
It's a Gita going on in your own head, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
It is.
Oh, that's lovely, Helen. Oh, beautiful.
You can feel
Thank
the
you
energy
so
that
much.
comes with that. It's totally harmless, isn't it? It's not the obsessive thought machine that was going on. It's more a softening that's just kind of, I'm going to examine the unexaminable and try to know the unknowable just for the joy of it, really.
Enjoy in myself, enjoying myself. Yes.
Absolutely. And why not think about it? There's nothing wrong with thoughts, is there? It's not like the
No.
mind's bad. It's only that repetitive,
Yeah.
cyclic thought that just makes us feel so terrible and seems to, cause a lot of suffering. That's the only thing we need to move away from. The intellect, the mind, is a real gift, isn't it? When we can, sort of focus it on something worthwhile like that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, we'll go to Don, and then we'll leave it there for today. When you're ready, Don.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Yeah, I wanted you to speak a little bit about awakening and relationships and how whether it's crucial that both people in an intimate relationship are awakening together, or and how does that play out? What is your experience seeing that? What is it just one person in the process, or awakening important, or how does it enhance it if both do? And what is your recommendation toward that?
So first of all, really, as you know, of course, maybe there's only one. There is no relationship. There's two bodies. There's one being, two bodies. Whether that's a romantic or a child and parent or a sibling relationship, whatever it is, professional work thing, or there's only one being. So it can only really be important that one of you is interested. And I'm going to go back to talking in duality, one of you out of the two of you, the two bodies. If you find that both bodies are interested in awakening on the path, then that evolution might occur a little faster in the relationship. It can be a higher expression of love, but that doesn't mean that there'll be suffering. The evolution in the form of the relationship can evolve faster. But if even one of you is on the path, you can both be utterly peaceful. And someone who's still even feeling themselves to be a separate being and really not even interested in going beyond that yet, they'll still benefit from your peace, your understanding that they're not actually, your silent knowing inside that they're not actually what they think they are, because the effect of that is you won't be trying to change them. There might be things, of course you'd want certain things for them, you want them to be happy, etc., but you're not going about that by trying to change them. And you're also not demanding that the relationship fulfill you, and that if the relationship isn't going well, you're going to be unhappy. Part of the evolution of a relationship is going to bring some friction, some contrast, some experience of what you'd prefer not to have or experience. So the evolution of that doesn't necessarily mean suffering at the same time. And one person, one of you coming to recognize what you really are can transform the entire relationship, all of your relationships in your whole life. Does that help? Oh.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you. Welcome back from your sabbatical it was really beautiful to reconnect to the group this morning.
Yeah, thank you. I had a wonderful, fairly quiet Christmas and New Year, which was really, really nice. So I hope you did too. Thank you for that, Don. Okay, so we will leave it there for today, and just want to finish where I started, and Angie and Don both, and the questions that were sent in even it helped me emphasize that if we can just remember the most important thing and bring our attention to that as often as we can, that is enough in itself. It will not only transform your inner state, it will transform your outer experience too. And that will happen effortlessly and beautifully as an unfolding in the form from the recognition of what is formless. So remembering the most important thing, the most beautiful thing, is the most essential, but also the most difficult, because it seems like the most ordinary, boring, insignificant thing. That's the challenge, really, to fall in love with that, and it's not at all what you think it is, what it seems to be. Just a simple flip, that the thing that I've been valuing least might be the most important thing, the most important. And then, like Angie was saying, that you really can never know it fully anyway. That can be a process of falling in love with it endlessly. Can you imagine falling in love with something endlessly? I mean, like forever. Every day, it's more and more beautiful. Just the same bog standard boring silence that we're hearing right now. But it can continue forever to reveal itself to you in an ever more beautiful and intimate way. The beloved, as we've been calling it. So, thank you. Namaste.